Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Evolved Man Masterclass. Today, I'm super excited to have with me Dallas Cyr. Welcome, Dallas.
What's up? How's it going?
It's going very well. Super excited to have you with me. So, Dallas, you're a
I'm
master life
excited.
guide, a conscious business mentor, and an inspirational speaker, as well as a spoken word artist. I can't wait to dig into all of that.
Sure. Me too.
Awesome.
Totally.
So let's start with the master life guide and what that work entails alongside the conscious business mentor.
hmm Yes. Well, it what entails is grabbing somebody wherever they are on their journey and shaking and waking them up to an even greater degree.
Right.
My experience is that nobody needs really anything. Nobody needs anything. I've even, in all of my studying in the world, I've even met people who didn't require food or water and still lived for years, decades. They're called breatharians, and I've actually met some. And so everything I thought we needed, including coaching, everyone needs a coach. And then all of a sudden one day I was like, no, nobody even needs that. But being a guide says that I want the leverage. Throughout history, all of our greatest leaders and influencers have had guides. They've had mentors. They've had teachers. They've apprenticed with somebody, and that led to a certain level of mastery. And if we can do that in artistry, and we can do that in sports, and why wouldn't we do that in our life, in our spirituality, with our relationships, with sex, with everything?
Right.
To me, it's a no-brainer. We're here to serve and support each other, and this is my vehicle to do that. So being a life guide, what it entails is really being able to see the forest through the trees for your clients, hear the thing that they're not saying, go layers and layers deeper to the unseen, going beyond even just the mental stuff. There's so many people who are still promoting like the mind and purely just visualization and I'm certified in NLP, but there's even layers beyond the mind. And so being someone who can guide people to that depth in their experience to really break through whatever they're experiencing at a even deeper degree, making that change more transformational, but also sustainable and lastable, and so that they in turn can just shine even brighter. That's what it entails. The way I work with people is very different. I'll use all kinds of tools,
Right.
NLP and guided meditations and invocations, and we'll do physical work in the body, uprooting trauma, and emotional work. The list can go on. So
So
it really depends on the situation, the person. But
cool. I know, I've done some of that energy work myself, not as a practitioner, but as a recipient, and I can speak to the power of feeling blocks and that blocking you in your own life and the release of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that process and how that can help men evolve? Because I think some men may think like, it sounds a little woo-woo, that sounds a little out there,
totally.
but it's real.
Yeah. Well, totally. That's all we are energetic beings.
Right.
Quite literally, we are pure energy and vibrating at a particular frequency. And there's all of these things are so concrete and based in science nowadays. You can go research all of this. It's like if you look up somatics, and you go on YouTube and you can watch a vibrational plate.
Right.
That's toning. It's hitting at certain sound frequencies, and there's sand on this vibrational plate, and then you can watch the sand spread out into different geometric shapes and take form right in front of your eyes. That's everything. That's literally how everything in the universe is being formed. The thought in your brain is no less physical, material, and or real or illusory than the chair you're sitting on.
Right.
Period. And so energy is very real. So we are these conduits. We're both transmitters and receivers. We're purely conduits. And because of that, what happens is we end up blocking, the terms are like wealth. money, abundance, right?
Right.
All things abundant. We end up blocking love because those things are frequencies too. They're just another station on the radio tuner,
Right.
right? And so because of that, if we're not in tune with that frequency, then it won't match us. We won't match it. Now, what blocks that attunement, what blocks me from just being in the experience, in the field, and the vibration of abundance, right, is thoughts that I'm experiencing. It could be actual karma or past life traumas that we brought into this lifetime. It can be on a physical level. It could be food. Typically, though, the experiences that we're having on a physical level,
Right.
Especially if it's being activated by food, were already happening on an emotional and on a spiritual level. Because it was happening on a spiritual level, it manifested on an emotional level. Because then it was happening on an emotional level and we didn't catch it, it eventually then manifested on the physical level. So I'm sharing all of this because, specifically to answer your question, that as soon as I'm cognizant of this, that I have that new level of awareness and I start to catch wherever I have an emotion that I'm either not aligning to, that I am attempting to block, that I'm resisting, that I'm fighting, right? I'm a man. A man is gonna man up. A man's gonna, is gonna push through. Is gonna make it happen. And so immediately I become a wall, and like Bruce Lee said, be water, right? And so immediately I become a wall, and I'm brick hitting brick, and that's a lot less effective than me just being able to permeate through the pores of the wall effortlessly and be on the other side, or manifest a door, or just fucking walk around. Let's talk about that. So moving the energy is a matter of permeating the pores of something that seems physical and being able to move through, so you're not in resistance to it anymore. It's creating a door where there wasn't one. It's just walking around and not having to believe that the wall is even real or have any relationship with the wall at all. There's a wall. Great. If I don't have any emotional trigger around it, then I'm not impacted or affected.
Right.
That wall could be my mom, my dad, the way my teenager's behaving, and I can just be at peace with it and find another effortless route to come back in harmony with that thing.
Right.
So moving the energy, whether we're doing qigong, whether we're doing breath work, whether we're doing visual and mental, whether we're physically doing something,
right.
Moving that energy simply just moves that block, and that keeps that block from turning into an ailment, a cancer, or a pattern you keep repeating that keeps blocking in your life.
All right. Well, speaking of blocks, we're going to remove quickly. We're getting your mic hitting up against your necklace.
Oh, cool. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
It's all good. But so if you move around, that's going to cause some clanking with the
audio. Yeah, totally.
Cool. No, I think that was some wisdom you just dropped there, and it can seem out there, but I think once men, especially, because I think women are generally probably more in tune with those vibrational levels and can feel them, and men are in general more in their head. And once you harness the power of that energy and look for ways to, like you said, allow it to flow instead of, become a stoppage, it's a game changer.
Absolutely. It totally is. And unfortunately, a lot of people are creating the blockage and the resistance unconsciously. So they're not aware that they're doing it, and they don't really have the tools or understanding of how to not be doing it, because they've only experienced themselves in one way, in a particular pattern and habit, a particular style of conditioning that was probably, taught to them, in fact.
Right.
In terms of the masculine and feminine, we can definitely look at potential areas where something happens more frequently. Yet, as you mentioned, yes, men tend to be more in the head. Yet, ironically, with my work in Ignite Purpose and those who are wanting to be any more evolved masculine, oftentimes they're very heavily in their feminine, and they're coming across too passive. Because whether or not someone's in resistance and trying to fight and make it happen, or they're being passive aggressive and being very calm and inward, is not necessarily a gender thing. It looks that way, yet really what it is it's just a matter, again, of frequency or temperature. Masculine and feminine is like it's like a lukewarm water of in a pool.
Right.
And you turn up the water, and now all of a sudden you've got a hot temperature and you're dealing with more masculine energy. You got a cool temperature, you're dealing with more feminine energy, just hypothetically. And so if a woman is very much, strong in her masculine and doesn't want to be taken advantage of and is standing her ground and was taught to fight by her dad, then you can experience, that from a woman just as much as a man. In fact, much of my previous relationships were calling in very masculine women, and I didn't understand why that was until understanding this whole dynamic better.
Cool. And then just going down that rabbit hole for a sec, what was the difference in between you calling in those women and what changed?
Yeah, awesome question. Well, for one, it was waking up to the fact that it was even happening, like noticing how it always seemed like the woman I was dating was wanting to take the man role in the relationship. And it didn't always start out that way. I would start out in my power and be in a masculine role and taking charge and being really clear about what I wanted and where I was going. That's right. The man. The man is really the navigator, and as they say, is the river banks, and the woman is the river.
Okay.
And so the man gets to just know who he is, where he's going, and that in turn is what translates to a woman feeling safe or grounded in his presence. Him feeling grounded in himself.
Right.
And so when I realized that I kept attracting these very feminine, dominant women, I just started looking around and kind of investigating, well, why might that be? Why is this seem to be a pattern? And what is it about me? I learned to go, introspective and say, well, if that person, it was almost an intuitive sense, to be honest with you, that if this person is needing to show up to take charge, then clearly it's because I'm not. Right. I had even years and years ago, before a lot of this deeper work that I've done. And I've been doing personal growth and personal development for over 15 years.
Right.
Yet it got layers and layers deeper beyond just like, goal setting and mind habits. It got layers and layers deeper. So it wasn't until years ago that I even started picking up on this. Yet even prior to that, I had this intuitive knowing that if this person is feeling like they need to be strong and clear, directed, and be aggressive in the relationship, it's probably because they're wanting to take control because they feel either like they have to guard themselves or I'm not taking control because there needs to be a polarity here in the relationship.
Right.
So that kind of started waking up, and I just started noticing, and I didn't really know what to do with that awareness other than like, God, I really kind of don't, this doesn't work anymore. And I'm also clear that this is probably being reflected in other areas of my life too. If I'm not in my power in this relationship, then I'm probably not in my power in my work. In fact, wink, wink, I'm not. So that realization was like more and more. I became, and the beautiful thing about awareness, it's only step one. Yet right. as soon as it begins to happen, it's like noticing like the blue Volvo down the street because you just bought a Volvo, and now every time you turn a corner, someone's got a Volvo.
Right.
So that's the beauty of it. As soon as I was open and aware to that, just the general idea, then certain books came into play, and all of a sudden I would notice a post on Facebook, and I'd be like, that is exactly what I'm dealing with. And it would start to lead me. And I've known long enough to pay attention to those things,
Nice. So you had the awareness, you started to learn what you needed to do, and that was take control. How did that then change? So in your relationships now, you're being that masculine energy, you're being that bank to the woman's water, and how has that kind of shifted things for you?
Interestingly, I learned to take control of certain aspects of my beingness, like how I was showing up in the world.
Right.
How I was managing my own needs, my relationship to desire. And interestingly, there were certain things that I did in order to step back into being empowered. I did take control of, my thoughts, my habits, my life experiences, like everything that was in relationship to me.
Right.
Yet interestingly enough, the true getting grounded and being able to call in a really powerful, feminine, amazing goddess, my beloved, who I've called in, and have just this epic relationship with this incredible, powerful woman. To be in that place also took surrender, because surrender comes in when I'm so confident and comfortable with the flow of life,
Right.
that I trust myself and my ability to make decisions and my ability to deal with whatever the outcome of those decisions. So I'm not in fear of making decisions. I know whatever I decide, it's going to bring about the perfect outcome, regardless of how I then get to respond to the outcome. Still perfect.
Right.
Still perfect. It's going to teach me what I need, offer me what I need. That level of trust in life and in myself is what really created this deep grounding in me and took away any remaining elements of being in a place of neediness. So I had this wake-up call one day where I was like, you know what? If it's not the most perfect, epic, amazing, dynamic love, even if it's not forever,
Right.
but it's just mind-blowing and transformational and it's beautiful, I don't have space for it anymore. And I used to be the guy who was, trying to sleep with everyone and everything.
Right.
And so that wake up call was like a line in the sand that I wasn't going to be needy anymore. I wasn't going to search for this relationship for the sake of experiencing, like a sweetness or a sensitivity, or for the sake of experiencing companionship, or for the sake of just having sex and having my physical needs met, or for the sake of none of that. Every time that I did that, it was coming from a place of I needed this relationship in order for some part of me to feel more potent and alive. And when I recognized that it all comes from me,
Right.
and I took complete radical responsibility of that and drew the line that I wasn't going to be a needy bitch anymore. And so I assist my clients when they're in that place to get rid of their needy bitchness.
Right.
Then all of a sudden there was this transformation in me where my spine got a little bit straighter and everything in me kind of sunk in and got taller, but also softer at the same time. Again, like water, pliable.
Right.
That I could handle anything that came my way, and that I was ready to be a king next to, a genuine queen.
All right. That's beautiful. And I think it's a great kind of example of what a evolution looks like. I just want to highlight a couple of things that you said in there. One is, total trust in yourself and, not getting attached to any outcome, as it were, because I think so many of us can think about the what ifs or try and live in the past, and having that trust that everything that is going to happen is the right thing and that you'll be able to handle it is a great grounding, like you said, to operate in, and also getting rid of that needy bitch that is compromising because it wants one thing or another, but is not going for the whole package because maybe he or she doesn't think that they don't deserve it or don't think that they can make it happen.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
and again, a lot of that is unconscious as well. Some of it because they feel like they get to be in a place of, because they a lot of times the masculine energy still does relate to this control in the sense of, like you said, attachment. They think that they're being the masters of their universe, and what they're really doing is restricting flow. And it's like anything, the longer you try and hold on to something, then the less room and freedom it has to grow and breathe. And therefore we end up, really strangling the relationship, and that has an impact as well,
So how does one get rid of their subconscious demons?
Love them. A lot of the work that I do with clients around shadow is understanding that anytime that you are at odds with any part of your being, then you're denying yourself self-love.
Okay.
Okay. And so I cannot judge any aspect of myself and love myself more at the same time. It's an impossibility. There is no way to say, I like this about myself and it's wonderful. And, I really don't like this about myself. I have to change it. I then am shaming that thing.
Right.
So in one aspect, I'm making myself wrong for that thing being in my presence, for that thing being in my body or in my past or in my history or in my thoughts. So one, I'm then blaming it for being there. I'm in resistance to it. I'm at odds to it.
Right.
Next, it's probably something that I'm not proud of. So therefore, I have to hide it or try to minimize it. Now I'm in shame. It might have even come from something that I wish I didn't do. So now I'm in regret. I'm literally in the three lowest vibrational states a human being can exist in. And this is something that is permeating our human existence. It is what closes the energy around our root chakra, as well as our sacral chakra, which is where all of our dynamic life force comes from. Right? For a man to really know and trust his direction, for a man to feel alive in his sexual organs and to have that energy moving powerfully through his body, we get to have a very active sacral and root chakras, solar plexus, all of it, of course. But when we're in shame and guilt and regret, those are very, very low base energies, and therefore we're shut down at the start. And so beginning to activate those areas of our body, again, through multiple things, guided meditations, through sound, through movement, through breath, through making different declarations and claiming things in your life and just trusting the unfolding of it in practice, right? But also looking backwards a little bit. I'm not one where I feel like we get to go back in the past and play that loop over and over. It doesn't serve us. We get stuck there. We relive it. We stay in that same emotional, vibrational state.
Right.
I also don't think of just, it doesn't matter, just move forward and you'll grow beyond the past and just focus on what you want to create and do in the future. The past doesn't matter. Because in my experience, although that's potentially possible, we end up suppressing certain truths and realities, and they just poke up later on down the road.
Right. So you got to deal with it, but not dwell in it.
Exactly. So looking back, I get to see that there were aspects of my life where these certain patterns and behaviors began. Okay.
Right.
And it might have been from, not even if you don't believe in past life. Usually if we're doing something early on in our life experience here, it's because we're probably bringing it in from a previous time. Even if you don't believe that, doesn't matter. If it's an early childhood pattern and you continue to relive it, then we get to look at that, because the beauty is it's not your fault.
Right.
Right. So like when I start doing deep work around like parental experiences and our past life or our past experience, past life, meaning like, in your youth and in your teens, then the great thing is we see these conditions, these habits, these beliefs that were injected in us, that were taught to us, that were given to us, that we didn't know we didn't have to take on.
Right. So
so we took
programming in the operating system.
Yeah, exactly. And so we took those on. Now, I believe all of that comes from again, beyond the mind. Yet, even if we just start there, we get to look at those things and have a new relationship with them.
Right.
Because the truth is like, it's not your fault, meaning you get to recognize the conditioning that happened and you get to start a whole new level of forgiveness for yourself, for all parties involved. Because again, anytime you're shaming or blaming, then you are absolutely a victim. You cannot say, mom and dad did this, or anyone at all, stranger did this to me.
Right.
Even if you overcome it, even if you're like, I beat that, I'm the winner, that person wasn't going to stop me, you still have a villain and a hero.
Right.
You still have a victim. someone who had to beat or overcome some external circumstance that was outside of them. So you had to at some point give that power away in order to even attempt to claim it back. And even if you claim it back, you're still always seeing that circumstance or person as a villain. So you're giving something to them no matter how small.
Right.
And that'll affect you. So my point around all of this is that when we begin to see all these things, then we can say, wow, it wasn't my fault that I took on those beliefs, those patterns, those experiences, yet it is 1 gazillion friggin' % my responsibility and no one else's. That's also a time when a large transformation happens in a man, and he draws that line from that needy bitchness and steps into a whole new level, again, of self-trust and of faith and of confidence. And so when I recognized that I was solely responsible for my entire experience,
right,
then there was even if I can't be solely responsible for that person's experience or for that person's response or outside circumstance, solely 1,000% responsible for all of this, then I can transform things dramatically. Now, what that means is, final point, is that when it comes to shadows, aspects that I don't like,
right,
I can draw a new relationship with that. I can say, I see you. I love you. I've done deep plant medicine work. And in one of my plant medicine journeys, before starting the process, my intention, as we started this call with an intention, right? Which I love that you did that with me before, is like grounding, breathing, connecting, and setting an intention. So my intention before going into this deep plant medicine ceremonial work that I did years ago was that I was going to accept and receive everything.
right.
And so when I was in this beautiful journey and it was friggin' amazing, and I was like, holy cow, and just, felt connected to it was mind blowing. All of a sudden, this, what appeared to be like this dark external entity was in front of my face, and it looked just oily and greasy, and really it could potentially be a terrifying experience.
Right.
And I remembered my intention at the outset. And I could hear this voice as this thing was standing in front of me saying, but you used women, but you did this, and you've done that. And it was just replaying all these horrible moments. And all of a sudden I looked at it and I smiled and I was like, yeah, I'm that too. And it was gone. The room exploded into color, and all of a sudden I was back to pure bliss, because that shadow only needs for you to put light on it. It gets to be seen. The problem is not the event and the shadow itself. The problem is you shaming, blaming, regretting it, guilting it, fighting it. That's what creates all of the shit you're carrying.
Right.
When you're at peace with it and you say, I'm that too, you'll notice a desire in you to want to let that go and show up at a higher vibration, not to want to own that and celebrate and keep doing it. In fact, the irony to it is that when you're trying to block it, there's always this pull to kind of look at it and go back to it, because you're remaining in that lower vibrational state, and it's just asking for it to be seen.
Right.
And so that's why so many people keep doing these really, hellacious, horrible shadow things, instead of having a relationship with it and understanding why it's happening, and then transmuting it with love and just letting it go. Then all of a sudden your natural state wants to be like, oh man, that doesn't have to be in my experience. I don't have to choose that anymore. I now can feel like I've grown beyond it. I've expanded beyond it. It's been seen. I just need to know that that was there, and that it's something that I can choose not to do,
Right.
versus fighting it,
Yeah. No.
So when those shadows come up, I just tell people to love them. I give them different processes around it, because it could be easier said than done, for sure. But yeah, it can be as easy as just being like, just honoring it and understanding that that's part of your experience, but it doesn't have to be part of your experience going forward. It's still a choice. And now you have more freedom to choose now that you've faced it.
Right. No, I identify with that a lot because I've done some of that shadow work, and in the past, how that manifested itself for me was being in relationships with women and not being able to communicate properly that I wanted to get out because it wasn't right, and I would just didn't have enough power to communicate. So I often ended up cheating on women to create a situation that gave me an out, and that is obviously nothing that I was proud of, and created so much hurt for myself and the women I was dating. But it is, once you kind of like deal with that and you talk about it, you can kind of release it in a way. So I think for any guys out there that do have that kind of shame cycle, like you said, it doesn't have to define you if you take responsibility for it.
Totally. Yeah, in fact, transmute it with love. Our whole entire journey on this planet is to return back to the state of unconscious love. There's many theories. I've studied so many different spiritual philosophies and religions, and for decades. And long story short, my understanding is that Jesus, who was an amazing enlightened master, even if you're not Christian,
Right.
But it was just an amazing enlightened master on the planet. They termed him Christ, but Christ is not a being. It's not a person. Jesus Christ was not actually his name. Jesus was his first name. He had a different last name. Christ is the term that they gave him because he was in Christed energy, crystalline consciousness. And because of that, what he emanated, what he came to the world to teach was unconditional love.
Right.
Right? The parable, or if you're a devout Christian, the truth, however, doesn't matter whether it's a parable or a real story, of him being on the cross and saying, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do," was like his last stand, at least in the Bible. His life continued on after that, by the way, but in the Bible anyway, that was like his last stand of trying to explain, like, no matter what, we get to return to forgiveness and unconditional love. One of the worst people in the town, who was being crucified next to him on the cross, asked to be forgiven and was, according again to the story in the Bible. And I don't actually teach a lot from the Bible, by the way. It just happens to be coming through right now in this conversation.
All good.
But I'm making the point because I believe that that's our path and our road. You can't return to unconditional love and experience true crystalline consciousness and have this world move more forward towards an experience of grace at this time, actually to know heaven on earth, if we can't experience that unconditional love for ourselves first. In fact, once we do, then to experience it for another it's effortless.
Right.
It becomes familiar. Oh, I just feel this for them. Oh, okay, done. It's pretty remarkable. And I can't say that's an ongoing practice until it becomes a permanent state.
Right.
For sure. But that's why there's just no value. There's no value for men. A lot of times we hold value in beating something. And we have a very competitive nature. And we've also just been taught that historically. There's plenty of men that had amazing rites of passage rituals in ancient tribes and cultures,
right,
that were not based in competition. It was literally a solo journey out into the world to come back as a man. And so plenty of cultures existed beautifully, by the way, without competition. So it's not necessarily inherent in us either, just because we're men. But that is very much alive in our culture and society. So because of that, we want to have this seemingly thing that that's outside of us that we want to beat. That's the one way we're able to feel the alpha or the masculine, and to feel like we've accomplished and succeeded. And then we think to ourselves, well, if I didn't have that thing to antagonize me and to beat, then what would drive and motivate me?
Right.
Something else. Something else would love would drive and motivate you. Inspiration would drive and motivate you. Spirit would drive and motivate you. The desire to want to actually help and create something good would drive and motivate you. Freedom would drive and motivate you. It's amazing how all of that fills up your cup and allows you to be more sustainable and energized and vibrant and actually feel connected to yourself and to life so much more than the thing you think you have to beat in order to be driven and motivated.
I think it's an amazing point, and I can feel the passion behind what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, we are chasing this, we're like dogs running around a track chasing this thing, and that thing is not really significant. And the earlier that we can wake up to that, the quicker we can help solve some of the challenges we have today.
Yeah, totally, absolutely, brother.
So I want to transition from your beautiful spoken word to one of the efforts that you're working into now is to help people express themselves better with your Speak, Express, Impact. Can you tell us a little bit about that program that you're running?
Yeah, totally. So my brand in general is Ignite Purpose, right?
Right.
That's the company, and what it is a transformational edutainment brand. So I want to bring powerful transformational teachings with a certain flavor and flair and performance and energy to it, because I believe that it can be very powerful and potent, and it can be also entertaining and fun in terms of all this growth crap, all this personal development stuff, all this transformational stuff. It doesn't have to be so heavy and hard and all of that. So it's about bringing fun. And so the point with this is that I've got two signature programs, and I teach them in both a very unique style. One of them being Igniting Your Purpose, and that's a process of really waking up to your full power and living a life of purpose, on purpose, feeling on purpose, and just taking all aspects of your life to a much greater degree.
Right.
The other signature program that you're speaking to is Speak, Express, Impact, which is for those desiring leaders, aspiring speakers, people who they know they have a message, and maybe they've even begun to get it out into the world, yet they're wanting to do it more effectively, more confidently, more authentically. They're wanting to bring a whole new level of confidence and impact, as well as maybe even performance, to their content. Right? So it's like they want to get on camera and they don't want to feel like they're a deer in headlights and just get the information across. They want to explode on camera, or at the very least love the process and feel free. So that way they know they're communicating more effectively and their videos are getting a larger reach. They want to be in an audience, and they don't want to just communicate information, because they've seen those speakers, even the really good ones that communicate information, and even the really good ones still during their talk, you'll notice the audience is kind of some checking out, maybe looking for the bathroom, because they're engaged in the mind and not also in the heart.
Right.
I often share that people don't really care what you say. They actually care more how you say it. It's about how you make them feel. And so this program, Speak, Express, Impact, is about assisting people in being more confident, authentic, expressive speakers, so they can deliver and disseminate their content and material more effectively to the world, so they can make more money doing it, but also, of course, grow a greater audience and make a larger impact. And so that both these programs, the Igniting Your Purpose and Speak, Express, Impact, definitely deal with mindset, and I go layers deep. It's really about bringing a lot of the spiritual, metaphysical, the mindset, all of it together in a very holistic view, and then rooting it and grounding it in like some serious frigging daily practices, and ones that I'd like to believe are actually enjoyable and can become easy habits and not be hard and painful. So that's Speak, Express, Impact is really, both of them are online courses at this time.
Right.
And both of them are, I think they're both 7 weeks long. The Speak, Express, Impact I'll be doing a little bit later in the year, around June. Igniting Your Purpose I'm feeling right now. So for those people who like really know that they've got a larger mission in the world, they're just not living it. They're coming out of divorce and they're wanting to remember who they are and regain their power. They've lost their power in their relationship, and they want to show up more in order to have a more connected love and experience, or be a better parent. They're wanting to show up at work and be the guy that is seen and supported and appreciated and gets the promotion and the raise, or they're wanting to friggin' cut out and go and get everything they need, the tools, the confidence to go create their own business.
Right.
That's igniting your purpose. Those are the tools, the mindset, the way of life. It's literally a step-by-step sequence that assisted me in going from being bankrupt, literally living in a basement, to having a miraculous. I just love every aspect in my life. From the most dynamic, amazing relationship to traveling all over the world, running a successful coaching business, living in paradise. The list goes on. Great friendships, supported in my community, all of it. And so, it's that step-by-step sequence is that.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thanks for asking. For sure.
What have we not covered today that we need to wrap up on it? And we may have covered we covered a lot of great ground.
Yeah. We definitely were not linear in this conversation at all. We covered a lot of space. I just want to first to at least take a moment to just thank you for being someone who's willing to create more conversations like this and work more towards evolving and waking up the masculine, and also to be more on your path and do things that you're feeling called to do. It takes courage, and so I'm grateful I get to have an audience and more opportunities to share my message, and so thanks for creating this opportunity. So
my pleasure. It's my pleasure, and
yeah.
it's an honor to have you. And I know I got a lot out of this, so I know the audience will as well. And appreciate the energy, enthusiasm, and the mojo that you bring to it.
Thanks. There is one thing coming up here at the end that I'm thinking of, which is there's nothing wrong with work and putting in a genuine effort into something. It feels good, feels amazing, especially as men, but it feels amazing. That's different than efforting. It's different than hustle and grind. There doesn't have to be this badge of honor in suffering and overcoming great challenges. We don't have to make things, again, hard in order for us to feel even more accomplished. And in my experience, when we are in flow with things, just as much amazingness unfolds, if not more so, without having it be such a fight along the way.
Right.
And so that's what's really coming through right now in terms of a final point to make, is that there really is this new growing distinction of who we're being in the world and what we're doing. And one thing I share in my courses that I'll give to you right now is that our beingness should always be informing the doingness. And I believe that's been reversed for quite some time, where really we were just trying to outdo everyone. And if we weren't sure what to do, we would just do for the sake of doing. Because I've noticed with some of my guy clients, I work with both men and women, but actually anyone in their masculine, anyone really in their masculine and out of balance,
right,
you'll notice will be very uncomfortable not doing anything. They'll always feel like they have to be like going and working and pushing, and if they're not cutting down a tree and working out, then they're working, and it's just and the only time they slow down and stop is maybe to watch sports.
Right.
And so it's always about doing. And if I just do more or do better or do something else, then the answer will come. And so to not do and allow the answer to come, to listen more deeply, and to be in flow with things, and to just really get clear about like who you are and what you're here to deliver to the world. Because my view on purpose is it's not a vocation. It's not a thing you're going to do.
Right.
That's just a vehicle. The purpose of you being here is literally an essence that consciousness gets to experience this this whole movie, this play, this illusion through your individual essence. That's it. So when you know what that essence is, when you know the flavor of what you get to bring to everything that you do, and you're in that beingness, like who I am being is like, spoken word life guide and business mentor, and I get to, have my flavor on everything that I do. And when I know that and trust that, then the vehicle I do it through, it just becomes obvious. And then the actions to take for that thing to be successful, for me to, to do that thing I've decided to do, also becomes a lot more effortless, because it started with, okay, I know who I am now. Cool. And what would feel good? Teaching, serving. I'm definitely a teacher. Okay, cool. How would I get to do that versus Ben or someone else? Cool. Bring in the spoken word and bring creativity back to it. Cool. Awesome. Because there was a time, I'm not the only one doing this, but there was a time in my life when I was a financial planner for 7 years, and all of that was numb.
Right.
I started out as a hip hop artist and a b-boy and a breakdancer. Then I became a financial planner and ran a business for 7 years. And this is now, as a coach, is my third business. But I got so far away from the artist and the creative that part needed some nurturing as well. And so now I find a way to kind of harmonize and balance them both. But that came from understanding who I'm being in the world, my true nature, and what makes me feel good and lights me up. Then
Right.
the doing was easy. The doing became obvious, So
Yeah.
I felt like that was the last thing that was coming through.
Cool. I mean, I think it's a great lesson, and that's one that I'm learning now as well, in terms of identifying a lot with nurturing that creative side. And I'm sure a lot of guys do as well, because you kind of get it beat out of you at some point when you're supposed to go into the workforce. And I always put myself in creative adjacent agencies to play it kind of safe, and then kind of kept moving further away without kind of nurturing that inside me, and realizing what I need to do to get back to that, to experience more flow in my life. So
Cool.
it was flowing through you for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you, brother.